What if I told you that the worst performing investment of the last century has made more ordinary people wealthy than anything else on earth? That's not a typo. That's not clickbait. That is the single most confusing paradox in personal finance. And once you understand why it happens, you will never think about money the same way again. We're talking about the great battle, stocks versus real estate. Two camps, two armies, millions of arguments on the internet, and almost everyone is missing the real answer. Because the real answer has nothing to do with which asset you pick. Stay with me. This one's going to change how you see your financial future. Over the past century, the stock market has delivered roughly 10% per year on average. Adjusted for inflation, that's about 7% in real purchasing power. Now take residential real estate. The actual inflation-adjusted return on home prices over that same 100-year stretch? Somewhere between 0.3 and 1% per year. Not a typo. Less than 1%. $100,000 in the stock market for 30 years becomes 1.7 million. That same 100,000 in home appreciation, 324,000. Stocks win by more than 5 times. It's not even a competition on paper. So why does the average homeowner end up with 38 times more net worth than the average renter? That's the question nobody asks correctly, and the answer will genuinely surprise you. Before we go any deeper, if you're finding this valuable, hit that like button right now and subscribe to Money Momentum so you never miss content that actually runs the real numbers. No courses, no upsells, just the truth about building wealth. Now let's keep going. Real estate has a weapon that stocks simply don't offer regular people. It's called leverage, and it is the great equalizer. When you invest $100,000 in stocks, you control exactly that, dollar for dollar. But put that same $100,000 as a down payment on a $500,000 home, and you now control 5 times more asset than your money should allow. A house that rises just 3% delivers a 15% cash-on-cash return on your down payment. At 5% appreciation, you're looking at 27%. Better than the stock market in almost every year on record. This is why your dad keeps telling you houses are the only real investment. But, and there's always a but in finance, leverage is a switch. And when it flips the wrong way, it is savage. The S&P 500 dropped 56.8% in 2008. Brutal, but it fully recovered by March 2013. Just 5.5 years from disaster to new highs. If you held on, you came out fine. U.S. housing prices dropped 27.4%, half as bad on the surface. But the real recovery didn't happen until May 2022. 16 years. In Las Vegas, prices fell 55%. Phoenix, 51%. Miami, 47%. People who bought in those markets in 2006 didn't break even until their kids were in middle school. Now apply leverage to that, 80,000 down. House drops 20%, zero equity, you can't sell. The market made you rich on the way up, and made you a prisoner on the way down. Stocks don't do this to you. A 30% crash leaves you with $70,000. Sad, but free. You can sell tomorrow, move tomorrow. The asset doesn't own you. So why use leverage at all? Because most of the time prices go up. And when they do, you're the one holding the bag of gold. When somebody tells you their house went from $200,000 to $500,000, they think they made $300,000. They did not. And this is where almost everyone runs the wrong math. Taxes average 1.1% per year. That's $4,400 annually on a $400,000 home. Every year, until you die or sell. Homeowners insurance averages $2,500 a year. In Florida, $8,500, up 46% since 2021.
Maintenance follows the 1% rule, another $4,000 per year. Some years nothing. Other years your AC dies and your roof leaks, and you write a $17,000 check while pretending to be calm in front of the contractor. Add it all up: property taxes, insurance, maintenance, HOA, closing costs, realtor commissions, and the typical homeowner pays 10 to 15% of their home's value in pure friction before the house appreciates a single dollar. Real estate doesn't have an expense ratio, It has a tax bracket. Robert Shiller, the economist who literally invented the housing index we've been using, found that the average homeowner estimates their real return at about 7% per year, the actual historical return going back to 1890, 0.4%. That's overestimating reality by 17 times. It's because the brain remembers the sticker price going up and forgets the $200,000 shoveled into the foundation over 30 years. You remember closing day. You forget every property tax bill, every insurance premium, every weekend at Home Depot. The sticker is dramatic. The drip is invisible. When your uncle at Thanksgiving tells you he tripled his money, what he actually did was barely keep up with inflation while paying for a place to live. And almost everyone runs the wrong math, which is exactly why real estate survives as a belief, even though the data has been screaming the opposite for 100 years. But before you cancel your house tour and move everything to index funds, stocks have a serious problem too. You are the problem with stocks. The asset is fine. You're the one who keeps panic selling at the bottom. Dalbar research found the average stock investor underperforms the S&P 500 by 3 to 5 percentage points every single year, not because the market is rigged, because people panic during corrections, sell when it hurts, then buy back in once everything feels safe again, which is always when prices are already higher. Real estate accidentally protects you from this. You can't panic sell your house. The transaction takes 60 days, costs 6%, and means packing up your entire family. The friction that makes real estate annoying is the same friction that saves you from your own brain. This is why the Federal Reserve's 2022 survey found the median homeowner has a net worth of $396,000, while the median renter has $10,400. The mortgage forced people to save. The illiquidity stopped them from screwing it up. Quick word on taxes, because this is where real estate flexes muscle that stocks simply can't match. Sell your primary residence and exclude up to $250,000 in capital gains if you're single, $500,000 if you're married, completely tax-free. Rental real estate is even stranger. You can depreciate the building over 27 and a half years, giving you a deduction for an expense that never actually happened. The 1031 exchange lets you roll gains into new properties forever, and when you die, your heirs get the property tax-free through stepped-up basis. The tax is never paid by anyone. The catch? Most of this only matters if you're already wealthy. For normal people, stocks have a better tax shelter, and it's called the 401k. If your employer matches your contributions, that's an instant 50 to 100% return on every dollar before the market does anything. Nothing in real estate matches an employer match. Nothing. Fidelity reports 537,000 401k millionaires in America. The average one is 59, has been in the same plan for 26 years, and contributes more than 17% of their income. They didn't time the market. They didn't pick stocks. They just kept feeding the same boring index fund every 2 weeks for a quarter of a century. Here's something nobody talks about, because it would put a lot of YouTube real estate gurus out of business. Buying a rental property in 2026 doesn't work in most of America. The classic 1% rule is dead. The median home is now $480,000. Median rent is $2,000 a month. That's a 0.49% ratio, less than half what makes a rental cash flow positive. Run the math on a $400,000 rental at $2,500 a month with 20% down at today's 7% rate. After all costs, taxes, insurance, maintenance, vacancy, management, you're losing $11,500 a year, almost $1,000 a month out of your pocket. Your cash-on-cash return is negative 14.5% in year one.
What? Mortgage rates are higher than rental yields in almost every U.S. metro. The math doesn't work. Period. Anyone telling you to buy rental properties right now is either lying, not running real numbers, or selling you a course. So who actually wins? A study of over 10,000 American millionaires found 8 out of 10 built wealth primarily through consistent 401k contributions. 3 out of 4 also invested outside the 401k. Zero said single stock picking made them rich. The average time to $1 million was 28 years. 79% received no inheritance. 33% never had a six-figure income year. And there are more millionaire teachers than millionaire lawyers. Let that sit for a second. About a third of the typical millionaire's net worth sits in their primary residence. The other two-thirds is somewhere else. Mostly stocks, mostly retirement accounts, mostly through 30 years of automatic contributions to a fund they never touched. Real estate is the middle class's wealth builder. Stocks are the wealthy's wealth builder. And the difference between the two groups isn't usually intelligence. It's how many decades they kept compounding without flinching. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. Two friends, both 32 today, same income, same $80,000 saved. Friend 1 drops it all into an S&P 500 index fund and keeps renting. Friend 2 puts it down on a $400,000 house. Both keep contributing to their 401k. 30 years later, Friend 1's $80,000 grew to $1.4 million in the index fund. With his 401k, total net worth $2.1 million. He rents near the beach now, pays cash for his car, travels 4 months a year, zero maintenance, no property to manage. Friend 2's house is worth $1.1 million. Mortgage paid off 5 years ago. Total net worth $1.6 million. Same house. Knows every neighbor. Garage full of tools. Grandkids on weekends, except for the one night the dishwasher leaked at 3 a.m. Friend 1 is technically richer. Friend 2 slept better most of those nights. Neither one made a wrong choice. They made different ones. And they both stuck with them. But there's a third friend nobody talks about. He started investing at 32. Panic sold in 2008. Bought a house at the peak in 2022. Sold it at a loss. Jumped back into stocks during the rally, sold in the next correction, then tried rental real estate during the years it didn't cash flow. He has $180,000 at age 62. That's the friend most people actually become. So here is the honest framework. Real estate wins if you can put down a real down payment, hold for 15 years or more, if rent in your area is close to a mortgage payment, if you have a stable job and aren't moving every 3 years, and critically, if you would otherwise blow that $80,000 on lifestyle creep. Stocks win if you haven't yet maxed your 401k match, if you live in an expensive metro where the price-to-rent ratio is 25 or higher, San Francisco, LA, Seattle, Denver. If you might move for work, if you don't want to spend Saturdays fixing things, and if you have the discipline to keep buying through a 50% crash. For most normal people earning $70,000 to $100,000 a year, the right answer is both. Buy a modest primary residence, ideally 1.5 times your annual income or less, which is exactly what the average self-made millionaire actually does. Then max your 401k to the match. Fill up a Roth IRA. Dump everything else into a low-cost index fund. That's it. That's the formula. Boring, repetitive, slow, effective. Stocks will compound your money faster, mathematically. Real estate will compound your discipline harder, behaviorally. The first one rewards your brain, the second one protects you from it. Pick the one that matches who you actually are, not who you wish you were. If you'll panic sell your stocks in a crash, real estate will probably make you richer, because the asset is glued in place. If you'll never bother fixing a leaky roof, stocks will probably make you richer, because there's nothing to fix. Both work. Neither works alone for most people. Your realtor and your stockbroker both want you to believe their thing is the only thing, but your interest is different. To keep growing your net worth quietly, automatically for the next 30 years, in whatever vehicle you'll actually stick with. Stop arguing about real estate versus stocks. That's the dumbest argument on the internet. Start arguing with yourself about whether you'll actually keep buying either one for 30 years. That's the only question that matters. The richest version of you isn't the one who picked the right asset. It's the one who stayed in the game long enough to find out it didn't matter which one. If this gave you some clarity today, do one thing right now. Hit like and subscribe to Money Momentum for more content that respects your intelligence and actually runs the numbers. No courses, no gimmicks, just the truth about building real lasting wealth. One honest video at a time. See you in the next one.